Right, this is a little tutorial video for all you guys that have joined the team to help build scenes and compositions for CYT. This is going to show you a few little things you might not be aware of if you're new to the project. So without further ado, I'm going to get straight into it. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible. So PP scaling. So you've got all your different categories, right? When you're hovering down like that, you get this little preview image. There's a little function here, PP scaling. You can change the size of the image. So if you whack it up full whack, you get a nice juicy sized image where you can see the model in its full glory, right? So that's, if you're unfamiliar with the assets, which you're going to be, all you new guys, just whack that up full whack and you get to see everything nicely. One thing I'm going to tell you about though is there's a lot of assets that have been recorded. The preview image has been taken from behind the asset, like these, for example, these walls here. So if I pull that out, your preview image, you're seeing this, what you see there. But on the other side is what you want the player to be seeing. That's how it's going to be used. There's a few objects like this. It's probably, let me find another one like this, for example. That's the side you want players to be seeing. This is the back side that no one's ever going to see, right? So just bear that in mind when you're going through your assets. There are going to be some assets you can think, oh, it looks a bit plain and boring, when actually there might be more to it on the other side. And I've dragged this out here. This is a prime example. This is in the floors. So, but yes, it's in floors. Here we go. Floors here. It's called rubber floor. Rubber floor 1. There's a rubber floor 2. So rubber floor 1, if you pull it up, that makes for a great ceiling or a roof. If you're building an industrial kind of warehouse or whatever, you can use this as a roof section. There's another version of this. Here's another little trick. So if you go up to object type, you can change it to the other variant. So if you've built a whole roof like this and you realize there's a better version of this, which there is, that's the rubber floor with all the bits. This is for optimization. So if you're using the floor, if you want to use the rubber floor, use variant 02, because it has all the underneath parts deleted from it, or most of them. So yeah, so, and again, object type, when you double click, you can change it. So if you do make the mistake, just highlight them all, right click, object type, change it to the correct variant. We just strip this back because all those panels, yeah, it's extra performance hit that you don't need if you're just using it just for the floor. And when it comes to floors, try to build everything onto the terrain surface, like here. Don't use floors. The only time you want to be using floors if you're going up a level above a room. So if you're making a room above a room that has a ladder or a stairway going up to it, that's when you want to be using floor pieces like this and the other floor pieces that we have available. So then my first few little tips, I guess. What else? Let me see. Okay, so there's another little tool. Obviously, you guys that are new, that you haven't really had a chance to see what's available at the moment. Another little quick way of doing that is there's a function where you can right click. Well, hold up. Where is it? Let me find it on here. It's Monkey's tool. So here under tools, you have quick composition settings. So if you click that, you want to click it on the X and Y depending on what angle you want all your assets to spread out in. But if you click one of those, and then if you go over to the folder, if there's a big long folder and you just want to see all the assets and pick out what you want, if you press shift and left click, control and left click, control left click. I don't really use this because I know the assets inside out, so I know what to grab if I want to get it. But it's a good way of, if you want to see all the assets in that category, for example, just use that tool there and you can get them all lined out in a big long straight line. Pull what you want. If you just want this and you want this and you want to use that, then you've got those. Just delete the rest. And it's a quick way of just getting to see all the assets, really. So yeah, there's a couple of tools there that they help massively for you new guys. So next thing I want to talk about is some basics in object placement. Obviously, you should all probably know about the snap to surface tool here. have them checked and your object will snap to surface like so. If you're building upwards, you want to have that unchecked, especially if you're rotating. You'll find out why when you go to do that, I'm sure. The other thing is you got toggle translation grid here. So if you have this checked, you have the different amounts here. So for example, if you copy and paste there, this is how much it's moving by. Let's just do that on a drastic scale. So let's go like 8 meters. Copy and paste. You move that into place. Copy and paste. Move it into place. Copy and paste. Move it into place. You'll have this little gap here. Obviously, if you want these walls to align, have that at a lower value. I'll keep it to the minimum. And then Control C. If you Control Shift V, it pastes the object on top of it. And if you just use the translation tool, just to move it out, and then Control C, Control V again. Let's copy the first one, okay. But there you go. And then highlight them all. Control C, Control V, Control Shift V, and that will pop them into place there. Just want to make sure that your objects are snapped perfectly. Don't try not to make sure you're not doing that, because like that at the moment, oh, you can see it. Yeah, there you go. It's going to start flickering. See, when you're still, it's fine, but when you're moving, that's going to flicker. Just make sure you just get it snapped perfectly into place, and that would be how you build your walls. Same with any straight line objects like pipes, for example. All our pipes are modular, so you lay down a pipe and you want to use that tool to do that. There is another tool which you can use, but for now I'm just going to show you about the rotation widget actually. So rotation widget up here is very similar. So you've got the different amount set. So it's currently set at 90 degrees. Have that turned on. So if you want to Control C, Control Shift V, move it out a little bit and rotate it. Well, this is why you want to turn these off when you're rotating. So if you turn those off, actually I'll leave it switched on for now. Here's your rotation widget. So now I've moved that, so it's like I'm going to make a roof out of this, but if we move it, it will snap upright again because of snap to surface is checked. So uncheck that, tilt it, and then you can move it up and down and move it into place like so. So you want to align it perfectly. If the grid's still set, it will align perfectly. So that's how you'd build your roof sections. Another thing to talk about is you just want to, another thing with your objects. All your objects, see here you have simulation on, right? So let's go down to the simulation settings, special states down here. When you double click on an object, you have all these checked here. Enable sprinting, don't worry about that. Enable damage, turn that off. Turn enable simulation on. All you want is simple objects for static objects that have no simulation on. So the only times, so that there, you highlight all of them and make it a simple object as so, right? The only time you want to be checking these are the only two you really need to be worrying about. Don't worry about damage or anything like that, because that gets handled in the map when it all gets baked into the map using the properties from the actual model itself. So a simulation, the only time you want simulation on is when you're using lights. When you're using lights and doors, anything with an animation on it or a light source, you want to have it simulated so it shows up in Eden when you're running around. Yeah, and you can run through the door and it's not stopping you from getting through the door. So yeah, turn everything to basic objects. And the reason being, simple model, turn all your static objects simple model. The reason for that is that when you get to this sort of scale of building an area, when you've got a lot of objects, even though this is nowhere near finished or detailed, these are pretty much set in stone, that's finished, but the rest of it is all work in progress, apart from this bridge over the tunnel that's currently set in stone. This is all finished. But when you set everything to simple objects, this will give you your FPS reading a more accurate kind of representation to how it's going to be when it's actually baked into the map after you've finished the build. So yeah, when it's baked into the map, this is the way to give you the closest representation of the performance. Even though we currently have very good performance, we don't really have a problem unless you're gonna build one big room that's like the size of this whole area and you can have it very detailed, then it will start hitting performance. But for areas like this, you can go pretty wild on detailing and still have great performing FPS. So yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind. Simple objects on everything that's a static object that doesn't need simulation. Boom! So next thing I want to talk about is layers, right? And how layers can make your life a whole lot easier when building, and it's good for us as well if we ever need to go back to anything. If you want to delete anything, find anything, you want to be putting everything into layers as I have here. So here it's quite an elaborate build that I'm working on. It's looking a bit of a mess at the moment, but it's getting there. So you've probably seen screenshots of these tunnels already. So in these tunnels I have everything in layers. So this wire here will be its own layer. I've put all the wires into each separate layer. Decals like these spider webs, for example, you can see here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's spider webs. They're being the decals, and decals. This is a decal as well. And then you've got signs, electrical boxes, etc, etc. Let me go to a little bit more of a simpler build to show you a bit more about layers, and then I'll show you how to create them. But first I'll show you why they're useful. So here, I can't grab any of these objects that are here because everything's locked. So this is the layer that I'm working on. So for these white corridor and rooms, even though I've labelled it tunnels, it was going to be a tunnel, but it's turned out to be rooms and corridors. So this is something I'm working on. By the way, these assets are not available. These walls, these support beams, these ceiling parts, a few of these pipes, they're not available on staging branch currently. This is stuff I've made recently, which is on our development branch, which is used to test everything. And once everything's stable and we're happy with it, we will finally, we'll soon enough push it to staging branch, so you guys have got access to these new assets as well. But anyway, back to what I was talking about with layers. So this is my layering system. So I've made one folder for the area, which is this whole area, using all these assets here, just all this, yeah. And with the layers, how I do it is I split everything up into its own category. So you've got your walls here, your ceiling parts, and once you've created your layer, you can lock them. So if I unlock that, I can now grab those ceiling parts and move them, yeah. And the other thing I can do, I can create them and make them invisible. So hit the little eye icon there, and you can see down into the room, even though all these pipes are blocking your view. It's handy for like here, for example, if you don't have loads of objects, you can make them invisible as well. And then if you like to work from above like this, which some people do if they're dropping stuff onto the ground, like litter and decals onto the ground, you can do it all from above like this by just making the ceilings or the roof parts invisible. It's handy, especially when you're going up on layers as well, if you're going upwards, to have that function there. So yeah, that's how I do my layers. And then like for like ceiling props, for example, see here I've got plus. I've got folders within that folder. So I'll just put a few pluses just to remind myself that there's more than one layer in that layer. So here, for example, this is all my pipes that I'm sticking to the ceiling. This is nowhere near finished, by the way. This is something I'm working on. So pipe connectors, I've got unlock the actual layer. So actually what I've done now, I unlocked this layer before I unlocked the main layer. When that happens, this layer that I've unlocked here won't show up. So just click on that, lock it and unlock it again, and boom, you get to see the pieces. And these are just little connection pieces for the walls. So yeah, that's how you do layers. And like I say, if you're doing a lot of stuff in one section, so here it's a lot easier to have sub layers. So ceiling rails, that's these here. It just makes it easier to build, and you're not gonna mess any of this up that you've already placed as you're going. And you can just lock everything and do section by section. So yeah, makes life a lot easier. And that's not actually being used, that's these here. But yeah, that's layers. So I'm going to show you how to create layers. It's pretty easy, man. I'm sure you guys probably already know this, but just in case you don't. So let's say you got these walls here and you want to start a new section. So come to the plus symbol down here. That will create a new layer, and it will create at the bottom of your list. So you want to, so if you're making a room, so big ass room, big room, right? So that's what you want to call the main layer. So then you've made your main layer and it's got those pieces in it. Highlight those, press plus again, and that will create a subfolder. And then you just call that walls or whatever is there. And then within that you can create another folder. So if you just want that wall there, create a folder. Boom, you got a subfolder within the subfolder. So you get what I mean. You can sort all your layering system out whichever way you like, but try and keep it organized and try and keep everything sort of relating to what's in there. So keep all your walls in your walls, ceilings in ceilings, electrical in electrical, wiring in wiring, yeah, pipes in pipes, etc, etc. So that's basically layers in a nutshell. The other thing we've done is created our own video options. So if you go into video options, same way you would in game, you have your own custom underground video options. If you click this, it brings your view distance down. It sets all this to be optimized for the underground, and it also makes it so Armor can handle more light sources, because currently Armor has a limitation where if you have too many light sources within an area, every 50 or so meters, lights are going to be like turning on in front of you. You're going to see light sources appearing in front of you. This will give you more light sources and also optimize performance for this particular project that we're working on. But one thing you need to be careful of if you play Armor. So if you're playing Armor, once you set that, this will change everything. Yeah, this will change all your settings to be optimized for the underground project, and there's no way of going back. So you might want to just take screenshots of your settings if you spent a bit of time setting things up to how you play normally, if you're playing on an above ground terrain, doing a bit of milsim, whatever it is. Just take note of your settings before you set to the underground map, because it will change everything with no case of reverting. There's no saving your profile or anything, so bear that in mind when you do this. Another thing to talk about is ground textures. Some of you may be wondering, how will you get a surface texture for, let's say, a tunnel or whatever you're building? Down here at the bottom of the map, you see these little symbols here, labeled textured 1 to 37. So these are all the different ground textures we have. To view them, just hover over it and hit the middle mouse button, click M, and you can see what ground texture that is. You can, go through them all if you want and see what we have available. 37 is plenty, right? But to get these in game, that's something I'll probably do another video on. There's an add-on you can download from the workshop called Surface Painter. So let's go to where, yeah, let's go here. I'll show you what I mean. So Surface Painter, you can, so here for example, we have this train track. This is the same, a similar a remake of the texture that's on the walls here. And I redid this texture to add dark patches to the side, so you can have a track going down here and it would look kind of dirty on the edges. Actually, where is the train track? Oh, actually the train track's got dirt all over it. And then, yeah, we can have dirt here. There's a missing panel there. I need to sort that out. So yeah, so ground textures, to paint them in, there's an add-on called Surface Painter, and it's all done by pixel. So as you can see here, that's 1 square meter there, and you'd paint in square meters, and there'd be various different colors that represent each texture on here. And then you do an export of that, and it will come out as a data file, which you would then hand over to Axios, and he can implement it into the terrain, so you can actually see your surfaces that you want. Like here, there's, as you can see, this is how the pixel kind of art goes. But yeah, you can paint them in. I can show you how to do that, or if you're not wanting to do it yourself, we can do it for you. But yeah, I will do a video on Surface Painter on how that works, and we can get you set up if you want to paint in your own textures. Be probably better that way if you can, but if not, don't worry about it. We can do it for you. Right, I'm just going to do a little... This is... Right, fuck. Right, start again.